Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Mentor podcast. Today I'm very excited to welcome JB Perie on the show. Welcome JB, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thank you for having me, Jake.
It's my absolute pleasure and I look forward to finding out a lot more about you, JB. So as we touched on just previously offline before we started recording, fortunately for me, you've been back and listened to some of the previous episodes that we've released, so you have
Yes.
a little bit of an understanding where we're going to go. But for those that might be listening for the first time, this is a podcast where we dive into people's kind of Bitcoin stories and how did they find out about Bitcoin and why did it bring them to today. And of course, we will also talk about the Bitcoin Mentor. So JB, perhaps you could give us a small introduction about yourself. And in particular, I like to dig around in where you were born and what you started learning as a teenager. And we'll start from the very, very beginning.
Okay. So I was born in France, the eastern part of France. So I'm French. My dad he's retired now, but he was in the Air Force, French Air Force. So we basically moved every 2 to 3 years. We moved around in France and in other countries, around Paris, south of France, east of France. Canada, when I was really little, that's where basically I learned my English from. I lived in Alberta for 2 years. My mom is an English teacher. So, she was teaching us English and everything with me and my two sisters. And in high school, I lived 2 years in Africa, in Djibouti, and that's the eastern part of Africa. We came back in France, where we lived in Paris for, until I was like 18. My parents and my sister went back in Africa, in Senegal, but I'd stayed in France for my studies. So I studied in France. I did a master's degree. So I have 3 master's degrees, one in France, one in England that I did, and one in Spain. So I stayed 8 months in Spain, where I finished my studies. So 5 years. It was a 5-year course. And once that was done, so it was about 23, 24, I moved to Africa again, Morocco, where I found a job with a French company who had an office over there. For 2 years, I worked over there in Morocco. And in that process, during that time, I actually applied for a green card for the US, and I got it. So it's the lottery. Every year, the US get a lottery for green cards. And so I got that. I got that green card, and the company who I was working for in Morocco was just about to open a business in the States, right? So I told them, hey, I have a green card, and just let it sit. 2 days later, they said, hey,
Can you help
by
us?
any chance, would you go, would you go in Las Vegas to help, build this company? So I said, okay, let's go. And that's how I arrived in the US, in Las Vegas, where I've been since
You're
2015.
currently in Vegas now?
Yep. I've been here since 2015, so about 10 years.
Whoa. Oh my gosh, JB, where do we even begin? I have so many questions. I will try to take things chronologically, as I find that's always the most fun to kind of piece together the story in a sense. So when you were kind of moving around as a family,
Mm-hmm.
what was that experience like, going from these different cultures, and what were some of the things that you kind of remember from those experiences?
So yeah, to be honest, it was a little bit difficult at first because obviously, especially when you're younger, you have to make new friends. You arrive in a new city, new school. It's a little bit difficult, honestly, but I mean, once you get used to it, it's just fine. I have some friends that I still talk to now that are childhood friends, and we kept contact. It's just something you have to get used to. Every 3 years we moved. Just I changed schools a lot of different schools, did a lot of moves, and so it just need to get used to it. But it's fine.
And this could be unrelated, so forgive me if I'm slightly kind of projecting my own experience, but I was very much in the same place where I grew up till I was, 18, 19 years old, and I started moving around myself. This was in the south of the UK. But one of the things that I have found that travel helps with is perspective. And there's no doubt, for me at least, that when I travel to new places with new cultures, with new smells, with new everything, you suddenly realize that the rules that your parents say, my way or the highway
Yeah.
type conversation that is the status quo in where you are, living, actually other people have different ways of living and it still functions,
Definitely.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So would that be something that you picked up on when you're moving through these different countries and speaking different languages?
I mean, for sure. And also, you adapt much more easily after that because, as you said, different cultures, different, just different perspectives. So I just saw a lot of different people, different way of seeing life in general, and you can just adapt more easily after that when you actually, even when you travel, just for just for fun or just for vacation. When you travel, you just visit more easily places, talk to people more easily. It's just everything is a little bit just more easy, I guess.
Well, in a sense as well, you've broken those fear barriers previously so many times that actually it becomes easier, doesn't it? And okay, and so you mentioned you did 3 masters. I mean, that sounds like a huge
Yeah.
amount of work. So,
It's well, it's 3 masters. It's basically it's a school that it's a 5-year program that we have in France right after the baccalaureate. So the high school diploma. It's in Bordeaux. So my school was in Bordeaux, and they send us. So you have the masters from the school in Bordeaux, and they send us for 2 years in England to get a. It's actually not 3 masters. It's actually 1 master and 1 bachelor of arts with honors in the UK, and actually a second master in Spain. So 2 masters and 1 BA.
and what subjects were you focused on?
So it's the masters in Bordeaux is global management. In the UK, it's international business. And in Spain, it was Dirección de Empresas. So basically, just like business as well.
Hmm. Wow, awesome. And cool to get to experience the different type of teaching from those 3 countries as well.
Oh, yeah.
That's a real blend. Like,
really different.
I did a business management course in the UK of Bachelor of Arts, so I can have a pretty good understanding as to what you would have experienced during that process. But I never studied in Spain or France before. So, gosh, interesting. Okay. Well, one thing I'm hearing that's so cool, JB, and often is the way when I'm speaking to people that have become interested in Bitcoin, is one, you use the word adapt. And it's like, well, Bitcoin's this whole new thing. And it's all about adapting. And in some ways, like that 5 years of study that you did, there'd be no doubt in my mind that Keynesian economics is part of it in some form,
Oh, yeah.
which you have to kind of forget in a strange way. I don't want to dive too far down the Bitcoin hole yet. We'll come back to that later. Okay. And so basically, you had a really, really solid, high level business education. And now you're 23 and you're like, okay, and you talked about the green card and going to the States. So let's move more into your professional career. So what did you end up focusing on there, and what were some of the skills that you picked up?
So that company that opened in Las Vegas was a printing company. So they were printing on paper. So basically booklets. It was booklets, flyers, mainly booklets. Right before COVID, it closed. So after 4 years, 3, 4 years, it went under. So what happened is I just stayed here. I mean, I'm married, so me and my wife and I just stayed here in Las Vegas. She has a green card also. And I decided to open my own business because, COVID hit and it was just, okay, let's just try to do something on my own. And what I did is I opened an e-commerce business doing print on demand. So mostly t-shirts that I sell on Amazon, Etsy.com, eBay, and I just developed this business since 2019 or 2020. And basically I'm doing this, since 4 years.
Whoa. I always also love to hear how people kind of join the dots and why they end up getting into what they're doing. And so teach us a bit more about the e-commerce business that you're running at the moment then.
So the thing is, I wanted to, I just said, okay, I need something that I can do from home because we had a newborn. So I needed something to be able to do from home. And I started actually before doing the print on demand, doing some reselling, buying stuff online, reselling on Amazon. You can do that. And the problem with that is there was a lot of inventory, a lot of supply, a lot of products that came to the house. Then I had to ship them and everything. It's just too much of a hassle.
Your garage was full.
Exactly. So I said I need something with, no or very low inventory, and what I'm doing now is perfect because I have no inventory. I basically is just, as I said, print on demand. A customer goes on my website, buys a t-shirt, and I go and print it from a printer, and the printer sends it directly to the customer, basically. And that's it. And so no inventory, nothing.
Brilliant. And I mean, I'm intrigued just on a personal level. Are you willing to reveal some more details about that business in terms of how you've grown
Sure.
it
I
over
mean,
the
it's
last few years?
a
Please.
lot of people. Yeah, a lot of people do it online. I mean, it's well, it's a well-known business. You can just type in print on demand, and you'll find a lot of videos, a lot of articles online. But yeah, it's not like drop shipping, but it's really because I still have to design. I have a designer that I hire, and he does the design for me, and I basically upload all these designs on either Amazon, eBay, Etsy, usually as t-shirts, but it can be on mugs also, or anything that can be printed on, like notepads, yard signs, a lot of different stuff, stickers. And there's a big market for that.
What's the most important driver of differentiation of that business? Like, if it's fairly easy to get into, like what makes it?
It's easy to get into, but there is a lot of competition. So you need to find a niche that's not too crowded, I guess. That's the secret. You need to find a niche that, yeah.
And it's often the way, JB, with any business. I mean, frankly, the Bitcoin Mentor, like we're talking about, and we'll move into, lots of people know lots of stuff, but how do you package that stuff, and then how do you sell it to the person that needs that stuff? And it's a pretty simple kind of business discussion, but it's actually not easy in a lot of ways.
You have to also be able to put your stuff in front of the right eyes, which is really difficult also, because you can have a product that's good, very good, but if nobody can find it, then nobody buys it. So
yes,
yeah,
if you have no leads. Interesting. And that's one of the reasons, of course, that we love things like podcasts, and it's a good way, if you are consistent over time, to tell your story and to help people get to know you much better. And that's one of the primary reasons for us being here today. And so, JB, thank you so much for sharing all of that. Really fascinating to learn about that more. I would say that's one's life journey, isn't it? And so let's try and bring into this a bit of Bitcoin discussion. Where was it you first heard about Bitcoin? What was it you were doing that it caught your attention? And let's try and weave that back into the experience you just told us through.
So I remember really well. It was in April 2014. I don't remember the date exactly, but I know it was in April 2014 when I stumbled onto Bitcoin. I think it was an article online, and I was like, what is this thing? Because I like technology and all the new stuff. I like reading about it, all the shiny new object, let's say. So Bitcoin I had never heard of, and I looked into it, and I was like, wow. At first, I don't know what happened. It's just when I read about it, something happened in my head, and was like, this is amazing. This is going to be awesome, So I read a lot about it. At first, basically what attracted me to Bitcoin, and actually crypto in general, was the mining and the trading. Okay, I was like, hey, this is fun. We can do something about it. I liked the mining aspect of it. Was really something that I found incredible. You just on your computer, you turn the miner on, and boom, you have some coins coming in. For me, that was crazy. And I was like, okay, this is good. So I read a lot about all the coins, Bitcoin, and there was a lot of different altcoins even today, but like back in the day, it was really like the Wild West, right? There was no regulation whatsoever. It was just going all over the place.
Yeah, I've heard people as well, they're Bitcoin mining friends of mine, are very happy. They describe it's like you switch your computer on and you're making money. Literally making money with a machine. You're like, how's this working? Yeah. Okay, cool.
And it's difficult to explain that to people, because like, what is Bitcoin mining? Oh, you just turn on your computer and and some coins just fall in. Like, what is it?
And so did you start mining straight away yourself?
Yes, but not Bitcoin, because obviously even at that time, ASICs were already out. So even with a GPU, I couldn't mine any Bitcoin, but I mined some other coins, tried with my PC.
And sorry, so just for my understanding then, the GPU is basically the computing power within your like standard laptop or
The
at-home
graphics
computer.
card usually.
Right. And so the reason that ASICs were developed was because they weren't strong enough to actually compete and win any coins in the Bitcoin mining world. Yeah, interesting. Okay. And so you're inevitably looking at other coins that could be done with GPUs.
Yeah, coins where the difficulty was much lower. So I could use my GPU because at first, Satoshi, he mined on his computer, on his CPU. He was
A
able
decade
to get
ago,
some
you
coins
could.
that way.
Yes.
Yeah, a decade ago. And then more than that, actually. And then on the GPU, that was good. And then when people started to just, everybody was mining with the GPU that wasn't powerful enough for the difficulty that was going up, then they developed ASICs, and then that blew all the GPUs out of the water on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
At least,
Yeah, suckers. Yeah.
Yeah, so you needed an ASIC if you wanted to compete. Otherwise, there's no use. I mean, you could do it, you just generate heat, but that's it. Even today, if you have a GPU, there's no way. I mean, you can't mine Bitcoin.
And so, JB, the process you went through when you're looking at mining very closely, but you couldn't mine Bitcoin, so you mined some altcoins, and when was it that you realized that Bitcoin was something slightly different, or what happened to get to that point?
Yeah, I mined some altcoins, but I still bought some Bitcoin. First of all, it was the biggest one. I mean, you could see it in every, by market cap, by volume, by anything. It was the biggest one. And when Bitcoin moves, all the other altcoins were moving the same way. So Bitcoin goes up, all the other alts go up, and vice versa. So you could clearly see that there was one king, basically. It was Bitcoin, and everything else was following. So you just knew that, okay, everything else is basically noise, and then you have to focus on Bitcoin. So I still focused the trading and even the buying and holding Bitcoin because I knew that's, if one was going to survive, it will be Bitcoin. What I wanted to do, just like a lot of noobs, is just trade alts to sell and to buy more Bitcoin. Usually that's what a newcomer comes, and that's what they do. They try to trade the altcoins and then to get some money because they're more volatile, and then buy Bitcoin with the proceeds. But the problem is usually they get liquidated and you lose all your money, and you, instead of just buying Bitcoin outright.
It's interesting. It's very, very hard to do. So anyone out there that's listening, that's considering this kind of strategy, it sounds like, oh, that's the obvious thing to do, is to buy the slightly more speculative things that should go up faster than Bitcoin and then buy more Bitcoin. But unless you are someone who's equipped with some, fairly advanced trading tools or a trading system that helps you understand how to do it, it's incredibly difficult. And I would almost argue that if that narrative didn't exist, which is, oh, you should buy the altcoins first because then you can get more Bitcoin, then that trade wouldn't work. I.e., the main bulk of the demand is coming in for Bitcoin, and they manage to grab other people and send them somewhere different. And that's the problem with the big crypto exchanges, right? There's all these other coins. It's like, oh my God, which one do I buy? And unit bias, I haven't got 100 grand. I can't buy one of those, but I can buy 100 of these things.
Yeah, exactly. Because the price is lower, they think, oh, it's cheaper. But it's not in the end, You have to look at market cap. You have to look. It's not just the price of a coin that makes if it's cheap or not, and the technology behind it also. I mean, Bitcoin is here to stay. Obviously, you and I, we know that, but most of the people, they just say, okay, Bitcoin is what, $60,000. I can't buy that. Let me just buy, XRP or whatever, and buy a lot of them.
In some ways, like, I think of that as inevitable, and they are simply tuition fees on the way to understanding that Bitcoin is the better thing to own. We're just bloody lucky that we figured it out earlier than most people. What I'd love to catch there, JB, is you used the phrase Bitcoin's here to stay. So just run me through why you think that's the case.
So first of all, and when people ask me that, when I say to them, yeah, just like you said, why do you say that Bitcoin is here to stay? The thing is, it's first of all the most decentralized coin, and actually decentralized. It's the only one actually that's decentralized in this way. You can't sue Bitcoin. Who is there to sue? Nobody. You can't stop it, right? Because it's just distributed among all these nodes all around the world. There's no headquarters, there's no CEO, there's nobody to sue, nobody to go after to stop the network. So in that way, in that sense, I think it's unstoppable. The only thing to stop it would be to just shut down the internet, right? And even that, even that might not even be possible. I read that you could broadcast transaction using a radio. So, I mean, you can always find a way to, broadcast a Bitcoin transaction bit, apparently. And
wow, that's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
You talk about being like well defended. Just to chime on that point about shutting down the internet, that's something that someone has said to me, multiple times over the years. And when you start looking at how the internet itself is built, it's kind of fairly decentralized itself in terms of the different geographic zones that are independent from each other. So the collusion that would have to happen from a centralized perspective of the people that actually control the switch to switch it on and off is extremely unlikely, in my opinion. So I think it's largely impossible. And then there's satellites, and yeah, I've seen there's a business in Africa, Machankura. Shout out to the founder who I had on a previous podcast of mine, where they're sending Bitcoin using SMS. So there's all sorts of different ways of doing it. Okay, and it's here to stay. I also really like the foundational knowledge of mining, because, and you'll know this, JB, what is the difference in trying to mine Ethereum, for example, and trying to mine Bitcoin?
Well, first of all, you can't mine Ethereum today because Ethereum went from proof of work to proof of stake last year. So you can't really mine Ethereum anymore using a GPU, because now the only way to create more Ethereum is to stake them. So what happens is the rich get richer, and the people who don't stake, they just get diluted, right? So people who owns the most ETH just take them either on usually on an exchange or a service, and they get rewarded by the person who stakes the most gets the most of, an EV block. They get all the rewards, basically. So you have to stake if you want to stay in the game. Otherwise, you just get diluted if you just buy and hold it ETH, right? Whereas Bitcoin, proof of work, you actually have to mine and put in the work to get some Bitcoin. I guess somebody who's wealthy can have a lot of ASICs, but they will need to spend electricity for that. It's not just, okay, I buy the miners and then I'll get free Bitcoin. You still have to put in the work, burn electricity, right? It's not just having the most money, then you have the most Bitcoin, basically. It's just more fair, let's say, because you still have to put in the work in proof of work, contrary to ETH, where you just have to get the most ETH, buy the most ETH. If you're really wealthy, just buy 50% of, or how many percent of the ETH supply, stake them, and racking the rewards, basically. But then you control the network, so it's not fair.
It's the ultimate shitcoin, Ethereum. That's why it gets called that,
Yeah.
By all means, it's been an impressive attempt to build something very, very new that's very complicated. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But it's not the future of money, which is a different discussion.
It's in a sense, it's a captured coin, right? There's only a few entities who have that much ETH who control the network. It's just like when we talk about 51% attack on Bitcoin. If somebody owns 51% or more of the hash rate, they can theoretically rewrite the blockchain and double spend and do all this kind of shenanigans. In ETH, somebody who owns 50% or more of the ETH supply can, in theory, do basically the same thing. Yeah.
Interesting, isn't it? And so, JB, why I touched on the difference between mining Bitcoin and mining Ethereum, I hadn't even really thought through that answer in terms of proof of stake, which is a great point and actually wasn't quite where I was trying to go. What I was trying to highlight was that basically the size of a Bitcoin node has remained so small, and the block size wars were a very big part of this, which is 2017-ish roughly. And for blockchains that run with bigger size, the ability to run a node at home, it's
impossible,
right?
It's not possible.
So
like ETH,
so you and I can
yes.
run a node at home, and because of that fact, it's possible to have copies of the Bitcoin blockchain all over the world
all over
that will continue to proliferate. But when the block size is bigger, you need more everything essentially. And so actually what you find with these blockchains that have done that is that basically Amazon Web Servers are running the back end. So from a kind of corruption perspective, it's it's pretty obvious. If you want to do something to that blockchain, it's like we'll just call up Amazon.
Call up to Amazon, yeah. Call up Amazon, and that's it. In going back to ETH, I mean, it's not just to basically shit on ETH the whole time, but ETH, you just need 2 phone calls: Amazon Web Service and then Fura. ETH is shut down. That's it.
So interesting, isn't it? And so, JB, I'd like to rewind slightly here. And you mentioned at one point that you had a newborn. So you are a parent. So congratulations.
Well,
so am I over this end as well. Say again?
He's five
now.
Yeah.
Awesome. What does Bitcoin mean to you in relation to being a parent?
I mean, the Bitcoin I have now, I'm just going to keep them and either pass it down to him or for sure. I mean, he already talks about Bitcoin, and because I talked to him about it, I have these little metal coins that I give to him, like metal Bitcoin, actual Bitcoins, physical, let's say. And he has one on his desk, and he's like, Bitcoin. So he knows what it is. I mean, he knows the word. He doesn't know really what it is. But I think, Bitcoin is really, we'll see in a few years, but maybe a way to pay for his studies, or when he, goes, or basically when he, was out of the house and everything. And when he leaves, he'll have something, some money basically for him, because the way I see it, and that's why I buy Bitcoin, is in 10 years, the price per coin is going to be, 5 times, 10 times, I don't know, but it's definitely going to be higher than now. That's what I think. I don't have a crystal ball, obviously, but if I didn't think that, didn't have this conviction, I wouldn't buy any Bitcoin, right? So hopefully it works out.
Yeah, no, and touch wood. The truth is, if anyone tells you what the price is going to be on a certain date, don't trust them.
Exactly.
Because they don't know.
There's no way.
Literally no one knows. But I would be intrigued, though, to talk through the kind of fundamental thesis there. Let's say it's $1 million a Bitcoin by 2030. What would be your main drivers of that kind of value growth? That's assuming the same amount of dollars as that exist today.
Well, first of all, if we assume the same amount of dollars exist, because probably there will be much more dollars.
Many more, yes.
Yeah,
but the point is, like, $1 million Bitcoin in 2030 if there's like 10 times more dollars in the world.
Oh yeah, so
it's just, do you know what I mean? It's with inflation, it's hard to to predict. But
so yes, well, first of all, the inflation has, especially after days like today when there is a lot of recession fears.
Yeah, it's been very interesting few days in the market, hasn't it? Yeah.
If we actually go into a recession, people are going to first of all sell all risky assets, but then they're going to try to find safe assets like gold, Bitcoin, and this is going to drive the demand up, and the supply of Bitcoin is fixed, right? 21 million. And the issuance goes down every 4 years with the halving. So fixed supply, basically after, long enough time, no more Bitcoin will be mined. And then demand is going up because people are looking for somewhere to put their money, because the dollar, obviously, or any fiat currency is losing too much value. So it's just basic supply and demand economics. Demand up, supply down, then the price goes up.
It's actually so simple in that sense.
Yeah.
And I completely agree. The thing that always catches me as well, like as an investor, I felt it just again today. I find some of the best way of explaining the benefits of Bitcoin is talk about how you feel. And so, you hop onto any social media platform and all hell's breaking loose because
today
the stock markets have gone wild. And I just had a check this morning. So the Japanese stock market's 12.5% off in the last 24 hours. Amazon's down 10%. There's a whole bunch of different things going on that, like, whoa, that's actually quite a big recorrection. And of course, Bitcoin itself, it was down 80,000 Aussie. I woke up this morning, it was back at 85. So it's rallied a little bit, but come off very, very fast. And how does it feel? I feel pretty chilled.
I feel chill, and I actually feel pretty happy because I can buy more at cheaper prices. You know what I mean? It's just,
Yep.
I don't want it to go too fast, too high, too quickly, because I'm not done I'm not done stacking
Yep.
sats basically.
Yep.
So on days like today, oh, is it going to zero? Right? I don't think that, but like you still have that in the back of your head, like it's going down. You don't feel great about it, but on the other hand, I'm like, well, this is good. Just an opportunity to buy more, at cheaper prices. So it's
Buy
just
the
it's a
goddamn
two
dip. That's the
exactly.
great meme, that, isn't it? But it's so interesting, though, if you think about it, as parents, you're looking to give something to your children when the time becomes right, whether it is for some studies, for example, or some emergency medical situation appears for yourself or your parent, perhaps a grandparent. And really, we just need a savings technology. Sounds so simple, but we've never had one before, or not
Well,
in the way that Bitcoin
there was
represents. In a
gold,
sense. There was
or
gold,
silver,
yes.
like metals, okay, but it's just too. In today's age, gold is
You can't send it via
funky, it's
text message.
big. Yes, you
Yeah.
can't exactly.
And it's so fun, though, that like, because when I look at think about it, like equity investing, by no means is equity investing over. Like, companies will continue to provide value. So the meme, everything divided by 21 million, I think is actually not true. Because if you think of, total global assets of 900 trillion, Bitcoin's a trillion today, well, it's going to probably suck all the monetary premium out of the rest of them. So maybe it'll get to 500 trillion or something. But like, there'll still be valuable companies out there. There'll still be valuable real estate out there. There'll still be, gold even maybe.
Yes.
But the point is if I owned an individual equity and it came off by 10 or 12% in a day of trading, those companies are all leveraged in some way, and they've still got to pay their interest, and they've still got to do all the things that a company's still got to do, but they're now worth 10% less. That company, in that case, if not managed appropriately, has a far higher chance of going to zero than Bitcoin does. But we've been using equities as savings vehicles, and that's the really important thing to highlight in a sense. So when I see it come off by 10, 20%, I'm like, is it going to zero?
No. I mean,
no way.
It won't go to zero because I'll buy all of them before, anyways.
Yeah. You'll pick it all up. Well, and that's another thing then, isn't it? Is that the buying demand, that every time Bitcoin drops, it just hits this wall of buy. People are just picking it up the whole way along.
I mean, the market moves in the way it moves, but I think in the case of Bitcoin, there's always going to be people wanting to buy the Bitcoin, I mean, unless something crazy happens, like the network gets hacked or something, an actual black swan event, like a real one, then who knows what happens. But even
a bug in the code is
that,
found that it means it doesn't work of some form. Yeah,
exactly. But even that, the devs, they can always patch it or do something, I guess. And
the more technical minded friends of mine that are into Bitcoin will tell, or one of them has told me, is that the code base for Bitcoin is probably the most reviewed code ever.
Yeah, definitely.
More developers have looked at that than more eyeballs than ever before to try and find a problem with it and to improve it. So again, the probability drops, right?
Yeah, nobody found a bug or a leak or something, or at least they patched it, or they changed it to fix it, basically.
And JB, I want to come back to that phrase of stacking sats. So, as you've explained to us before, you are an entrepreneur and you run your own business. How do you stack sats? Are you using your company as like a cash flow generator to do that, or what's your kind of strategy there?
Yeah, that's the objective. My company would be, I mean, I'm not putting all the profits that I get into Bitcoin, but a good chunk of it, I buy Bitcoin with the profits. And yeah, that's it. I mean, that was my plan basically 4 years ago, and I'm still doing it today.
Awesome. Does your company hold any Bitcoin on its balance sheet?
No.
Okay.
I just do it since I'm alone on the company. I have an LLC, but since I'm the only member, it's basically, so my company is on the same tax return as our personal tax return.
Okay.
So it's the same thing.
Doesn't
because
make any
I'm alone
in
in the
sense.
LLC. Yeah.
Okay.
I would have to have a partner or something to really have a different entity. And when you're alone, it's basically a sole proprietorship.
Okay, interesting. In a sense, what's the difference of holding it in personal account when you could potentially have like a family trust or something that you can put it into, and there's all the different kind of legal vehicles you can
Yeah,
play around with.
I guess. Yeah.
Okay. No, and we don't need to go into that per se. It's a very, very personal thing. This is a good junction to start talking about Bitcoin Mentor. So
hmm
I would love to understand, what was it that appealed to you about getting involved with Bitcoin Mentor, and how's your experience been so far?
During the past couple of years, I wanted to have like a foot in the Bitcoin industry, like do something in relation to Bitcoin, either work and being paid in Bitcoin. I wanted to launch a website to sell, hardware wallets, or do a blog with articles about Bitcoin. And I just wanted to do something in this industry. And so last year I applied, or I put my name on a Bitcoin job board. And this year in April, I got an email saying, hey, this company, Bitcoin Mentor, is recruiting and they pay in Bitcoin. And I was like, okay, I was interested. So I clicked on that link and I read about what they wanted to do, the mentors, the protege and everything. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. That sounds good for me. And I applied. Okay. And at first I was a bit skeptical because I mean, just in this space, there's a lot of scam, a lot of things that, you don't trust right away. Just have to be careful. Right. So I was like, is this a real company? Is this real? I didn't know they were just launching. I didn't know all that. So I applied, but I was skeptical. I was a little bit on the defensive. I was like, okay, I need to be careful if they ask me for certain things, not to give away other things. I mean, I was just a
Send me
little
your
bit worried.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, something like that. Basically what happened is, before the first interview with Mike, one of the co-founder, they sent, I guess, to all the applicants a video. It was how to set up a wallet, if I remember correctly. And it was Ben doing this video. And I recognized Ben from YouTube, and I was like, wait a minute. So this is not coming from Bitcoin Mentor. They took a video from YouTube and, sent it to the applicants. So I was even more worried. Not worried, but I was even more like,
yes,
okay, this is
interesting. I
like, because I didn't know that Ben was part of the
Yes.
company.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this
Wouldn't make
sounds...
sense. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
hang on, that's the most obvious guy to take his YouTube
Yeah,
tutorial
I know,
and
but
send
like,
it.
I don't know, because you didn't see his face. It was just his hands, and he was explaining stuff, but I kind of recognized the setup and everything, and I was like, And then the interview came, the first interview, and then this is where I met Mike, and I was like, okay, so this looks legit, right? So it's actually somebody who I can talk to. I can see their face and everything, so this looks, legit. So he explained to me what they wanted to do, what was the process and everything. So I was after that first interview, I was relieved a little bit. I was like, okay, this sounds legit, right? And the process was basically, I mean, pretty straightforward. I had 2 or 3 interviews, if I remember correctly, with Mike, and then 1 interview with Ben. The interview with Ben was the more, I don't want to say stressful, but the one that was more technical. You needed to explain. He was acting as he was a protege, and I would have to explain to him how to set up a wallet. I did that. Apparently,
no
went
pressure.
Well. Apparently, went well, but it was a bit of pressure, of course. But yeah, I mean, the process was pretty straightforward. It was pretty fast, also. I think in a month it was done. And I was also really, it's weird because I was talking to my wife, and I was like, I'm really surprised that it actually took me, because I'm always like, oh, it's just, I don't know. Sometimes I'm not too confident in my, whatever, either the way I explain stuff or just in general. So I was really happy when I got the offer, and also surprised, but yeah, I'm mostly really happy.
Awesome. Well done, JB. Well, I think you do yourself a disservice, because on this conversation so far, you've done an excellent job of explaining yourself and explaining your story and teaching us about Bitcoin. So I think we're all guilty of this in some way, which is when you spend as much time studying Bitcoin as we have and digging around in the details, you don't realize how much knowledge you pick up. And I know I'm one of the co-founders of Bitcoin Mentor Australia. So a separate business over in Oz that we're just in the process of setting up. And you get all sorts of different types of characters coming to you with problems. Like one guy already owns $500,000 worth of Bitcoin or something, and he's trying to figure out what the best custody solution of it is. And then you've got someone else who's just buying some and they've got it sitting on an exchange. So you've got this huge different range of people. And certainly the people at the earlier stages of their Bitcoin journey are incredibly easy to help, because really they don't need much advice in that sense. And so that, I think, is one of the cool things. I started a podcast. I was so excited to get involved in Bitcoin, and I made a big move myself in reallocation as an investor. I'm like, this is the coolest thing I've ever come across. It solves all these problems I was trying to solve before. All you want to do is advocate for it. And what Bitcoin Mentor does well is it gives us a kind of umbrella to work underneath to sell consultancy, which is really what this is all about. And because, I guess you were already coaching some close family and friends, were you, JB?
Well, yeah, I always try to, my sisters, I'll, every occasion I get, I just tell them, hey, buy Bitcoin. Whenever she calls me or said, hey, I got a raise, I said, just buy Bitcoin. And it's just,
Really?
And the same thing with my father.
Do they listen to you?
Well, it depends. Sometimes, yes. But
it's hard. Yes. It's hard with your close family sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
The irony is that one has to be ready to listen, and sometimes hearing things from your nearest and dearest is actually the hardest thing to do. But when you're out there looking for information and your nearest and dearest aren't interested in this subject as much as you are, finding trusted sources of specifically Bitcoin information is actually, even with the plethora of content creators out there, it's still not that easy, which is frustrating.
It's difficult.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's very exciting, and we'll have to see how obviously the business growth, etc., goes. Have you managed to pick up any clients yet?
Yeah, I had 4 or 5 clients already.
Brilliant.
I actually had a session. Yeah, I just had a session today. Somebody who lost his without going into too many details, he lost basically access to his wallet and he couldn't find his seed phrase. So I helped him. I had 3 or 4 sessions with him, and today finally he was able to recover the wallet. So Whoa. He was really, really happy. He was like, "Oh, you're my best friend, JB." He was like, "Oh," he was really happy. That's what I like the most. I recovered a few wallets actually. So this was the 3rd one, and after that, they're seeing them so happy because you have the video and everything. It's like, okay, that's cool. That's really, really fulfilling. Really like, okay, I know why I'm doing this. Of course, I'm gonna probably stumble on some clients who can't recover their wallets. I'll have to tell them, well, it's lost basically. But the ones that actually can help recover their Bitcoin is really, really happy for them,
And so to kind of highlight that experience, not just from your perspective, but more from a customer, I'm just going to put myself in their shoes for a moment. Correct me if I'm wrong. You are trying to figure out what Bitcoin is. You bought some, you stored it somewhere, you might have forgotten about it for a long time, and then you're like, crap, it's now worth whatever. Yeah. I need it, but then you can't get it. Is that roughly the process people go through, or?
Well, for the clients I had, no, they made it every time it was user error. So they either mismanaged something with their backups, or they mismanaged their hardware wallet. They swapped them. They did something that locked them out, basically.
Yes. Okay.
They didn't just forget about it. They knew it. They had it. Or maybe they forgot about it or maybe they did the setup, and then a few months or a year later, they wanted to access it. And then they were like, oh, what did I do? I can't remember exactly what the setup is. And so that's when they call us, right? And then that's the first half hour is the most difficult part, because you have to get them to explain what they did if they can't remember, and then kind of figure out what they did and how to get them out of it, or to help them. But until then, it worked pretty well, since I was able to recover the wallets. And I had one protege who just wanted to know everything about Bitcoin from the start to finish. He's setting up his nodes and everything. He just wanted to know everything. It's from mining nodes to Lightning to Node to Liquid to everything. So also that's
Wow. Yeah, I even could do some work brushing up in those areas. It's so cool to see, how a company obviously starts with a couple of people and the team starts to grow. And now all of these people that have got involved, the breadth and level of expertise is extraordinary.
Oh, yeah. With the mentor in our chat, there's so many so much knowledge in there that it's crazy. We could probably figure out anything, if one of the mentor, they have like a client or a protege that they don't really know what to do because it's either too technical or they don't understand what they ask. They just ask the group and somebody or more than one person will just answer, oh, try this, try that, try this.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so to make a kind of analogy to the standard business world, I think of this opportunity as very much a professional services kind of consulting play. But if you go to find a lawyer, you don't need help all the time with just a commercial lawyer. You might need a real estate lawyer. You might need an inheritance lawyer. You might need an injury lawyer. You name it, right? There's different niches of expertise. It's much better you go and pay $500 and get the person that knows what they're talking about than like try and figure it out yourself. And I think this is similar. And we're seeing that already happen. Gosh, how cool. And so what you have described there is, and I think this is how I'm starting to think about it, because of course we're doing this all for the first 6 months, first 12 months. We've got a lot of stuff to figure out. It's kind of like Bitcoin Mentor is an on-demand Bitcoin expert that can meet you wherever you are. Like whatever the problem is,
exactly.
Book a call in, we'll figure it out and get it sorted within, a day or two. And that just doesn't exist. Now, of course, you're going to have to pay for that. You could spend multiple hours going out there and trying to figure this out for yourself, or you might have a friend that knows about it. Go for it. But there are going to be some people out there, as we're seeing the traction, that they just want to pay. They want to pay for implementation and get it done.
And get it done fast. And when you think about
JB, you'd be my friend if you recovered my wallet for sure.
When you think about it, it's not that expensive for an hour because you have somebody who's an expert in Bitcoin. It's a one-on-one, and they just think about your problem and then just 100% working on it. And I think it's incredible. They have really good company going on.
Well, it's very exciting, and I'm pumped to spend some time with you, JB. So thank you so much for sharing all of this today. Now, this podcast is designed as a way for people to get to know Bitcoin Mentor, the business, and the team internally. So we've done an excellent job of covering off who you are and what you're all about. As a handoff, JB, so if people want to get in touch with you and book a session or whatever, what would you recommend they do?
You can just go on bitcoinmentor.io. And then in the menu, you can find all the mentors. I think there is 16.
16 or 17, I believe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you find my name. I go by JB, but my full name is Jean-Baptiste, right? My French name. But I figured out really quickly that in the States, it just would be easier to go by JB. And you can either book through my calendar on the website, or you can just send me an email, jb@bitcoinmentor.io. And I can set up the call for you if you want it.
Just email through. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I believe it's now possible to book 15-minute discovery calls with each independent mentor.
15 minutes discovery call, which is free. It won't be anything technical. It's just to figure out the problem, what's happening, what's your issue, what's your problem, what do you need to know. And then I can always tell, well, you will need 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, 2 sessions, depending on the difficulty of the task.
Yeah, because that's one of the hard things is when you just can't figure it out. And then there's a whole load of options. It's like, okay, well, I could buy a package. I could buy 1 hour. It's hard to know how much time and expertise is required to solve the problem. So yes, I encourage people just to take up that option of the free call and basically just hit them with where you're at. Wonderful. Well, JB, thank you so much for your time today, and very best of luck growing your business and also building out your consultancy within Bitcoin Mentor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.